What's up, guys? I'm Chase,
And I'm Daniel.
and this is On the Trail Reviews, talking about what?
Our 3-part series, okay? We're going to talk about how to prepare for any backpacking trip in 3 parts. This first part will be called Research and Development, all right? Before we get into this, I want to let you know this is not a complete checklist of everything you need to bring. We're going to let you decide that. That's part of the fun in planning for a backpacking trip, is choosing your gear. But this is a generic checklist that applies for any trip you're going on into the woods, whether it be for an overnighter or a section hike or maybe even a through hike.
Yep, absolutely.
But before we get started, I wanted to share with you this tweet I saw from this guy, either like Jack or
Jack
John.
Boot.
Yeah, Jack Boot. I'm not actually on Twitter. I saw this through Facebook, I believe, but this is the tweet. He's talking about his 5-year-old daughter hiking in Crocs with a Barbie, and clearly he's kind of taking a shot at the hikers that love to bring a lot of gear on a hike. Obviously, this is a day hike, maybe in like a local state park or climbing up a mountain nearby, something like that. Well, I don't even want to say climbing, walking up a mountain, right? So in this situation for a day hike, there's total validity to this. I don't know the situation this was in. Maybe that hiker was like testing out some gear, testing out pack weight.
Preparing for a hike that's coming up.
Yeah, I could understand that, but there is some validity, right? So we could just walk off into the woods with nothing but our Barbies and our Crocs, and we would probably survive, right? But once you get into backpacking, like overnight trips, there is no way it is even feasible to go for a week or more with nothing but this stuff. So the research and development is so crucial, and all these great through hikers that have accomplished amazing things, like the 2,200 miles through like 16 states on the Appalachian Trail, they didn't do that with Crocs and a Barbies. No, they did that through careful planning and awesome gear, all the way down to the first person who did it, who probably used a canvas tent.
Let's actually get into it a little bit more. Let's know the distance and elevation changes that's going to happen throughout this hike. That's the first part of research and development, right?
Yeah, so that's going to tell you a lot. Just knowing the distance of your hike and the elevation changes, you can start to get a rough estimate on how long it's going to take you to complete this hike, whether it be a 3-day hike, a 5-day hike, or an overnighter.
Or a 6-month hike. If
Right.
Hiking.
6 months. When you're looking at the time to complete, make sure you take into consideration elevation, right? So if you're walking on a treadmill, flat ground for 5 miles, you're gonna knock that out pretty fast. Well, we run like less than a 6-minute mile.
Yeah.
Both of us. We're in fairly okay shape, less than a 6-minute mile, right? So we can knock that out extremely fast. But when you get into covering 3,000 foot gain over that same distance, it's gonna take us a lot longer to knock that hike out. So make sure you're taking into consideration elevation. What's a good tool? How can they do that easily, Chase?
Well, there's the Appalachian Trail Distance Calculator if you're doing this on the Appalachian Trail. You can go to atdist.com, and it has pre-picked points that you can click on, and it'll tell you exactly what your distance is, what your elevation gain and fall will be. It starts out at Springer Mountain, Georgia, and it goes all the way to Katahdin, Maine. It has every point in between that you could pick.
Awesome.
Now, one thing I did want to add for people that aren't hiking AT, I'm sure there's other ways you can get that, like using topo maps and things like that, to research and figure out what you're going to be climbing and falling.
Right.
So, what's next?
Next, we're going to talk about researching the weather. When you're looking at the weather, it can change on a fly. We usually start with a general kind of weather patterns. Maybe if we're planning a hike that it's a month or 2 month out, and we start looking at that. Then we get into the 10-day forecast. That's when it's like crunch time. We're constantly refreshing, checking the weather, right? Make sure you're looking at multiple sources, because there's going to be some outliers. Weather.com might say sunny and 75, whereas WeatherBug might say cloudy with a chance of meatballs. You know what I mean? So check multiple sources when you're looking at weather, and that's going to tell you almost exactly what you need to pack. When you get time, distance, elevation, and weather all taken into consideration, you can know what you should bring.
Yep, absolutely. So, next I think we should talk about sunrise and sunset times. Really, sunrise for me isn't a big deal unless I'm doing a sunrise hike and I want to see the sunrise from the top of the mountain or a view. The sunset, though, for me is crucial. I like to know what time it's going to be dark. That way I can know I'm comfortable at camp. Or if I plan on hiking into the night, I want to know what time I should probably stop, go ahead and get my headlamp out. That way I can continue hiking without having to worry about it once it gets dark.
Right. So sunset time, super important. Make sure you're looking at that while you're checking your weather.
The last thing we're going to talk about in this video today is transportation. And for some people, they may think, you know, no big deal when it comes to transportation. I'll just go in, I'll park, I'll walk out, I'll walk back and get back in the car. But there's a few different options, and we want to present that to you guys. So we have the first thing, which is a shuttle. So basically the way the shuttle works is you get in touch with a local company or a local person up there, and you say, hey, I need to be dropped off at this point. You park at the other end, and you walk back to your car. So say if you were going to get out at Nils Gap, you would have them pick you up at Nils Gap and take you back to Woody Gap, and you'd walk back to your car at Nils Gap. The next option you have is the buddy system. Daniel, have we ever done this before?
Yeah, we've actually tried out all three of these systems. The buddy system is where me and Chase both drive separate. He parks at the beginning, I park at the end, then we ride together back to the beginning and jump in and head to the truck. So that's the buddy system. You use a little bit more gas that way, especially if you're going on a longer distance. And the final way to do it is how Chase was kind of talking in the beginning, is to just park, walk to your destination, and walk back. All three of these options have benefits and they have cons. If you're doing a day hike, obviously the double back would be the best option, right? If you're doing a shuttle though, you will have to pay a fee. Most of the time it's less than $50. If you're going with 2 people, it just became 25. If you're going with 3, even less, right? You get to split it up. And that's the most convenient because you all get to ride together there, so that's cool. And then someone's gonna take you to the end and you can hike back to your car. So it's less gas that way. The buddy system works good if you're meeting in the middle. So if I live east, Chase lives west, we meet in the middle, and then we can buddy up and take the 2 cars from there, right?
Absolutely. So if you're ever looking at that and you really want to look into that more, join the Appalachian Trail Section Hikers page. If you plan on hiking the Appalachian Trail, tell somebody you need a shuttle in whatever location, and they'll probably point you in the right direction. And the last thing we kind of want to talk about is where you're staying, such as hostels or shelters. A hostel is basically a hotel almost for hikers. It's one big room usually with bunk beds where all the hikers sleep in there the same. I've seen them range from $10 to $50 a night. So kind of depends on where you're going to pick to stay. However, if this place closes, you need to make sure you're going to be at that place by the time they close. Some places you can actually they have a phone number you can call, and they'll definitely just let you ride in once you pay. Or they may close at say 7 o'clock, and if you're not there by 7, tough luck, sleep outside.
Right. And the other alternative would be to stay in a shelter or to stealth camp. If you're staying in a shelter, don't rely totally on that shelter being empty there, especially if you're hiking during thru hiker season. The shelter might be packed out and you might be left out to sleep in your hammock or your tent. Hopefully you brought something as a backup. So look for shelters, look for hostels, plan where you want to stay, plan how you're going to get there, check the weather, check the distance, check the elevation.
Absolutely.
Right? And that is part 1, research and development. Part 2 and part 3 coming soon. But until then, happy trails.
Absolutely. Y'all have a happy new year.